Good morning. This morning I would like us to consider a little bit the gift of faith, how God grows our faith, and how our faith requires the response of action. I remember when I was a Spanish teacher in high school, on Monday mornings when we came into the classroom together, this was conversational Spanish, so this was either third or fourth year Spanish class in high school. I would say to the kids in Spanish, because we were supposed to be speaking in Spanish, tell me what you all did this weekend. I want to hear about your weekend. So, I don't know, something like, bueno, pues me gustaría escuchar de su fin de semana. Sus actividades, right? That's what I would say to them, something like that. And no one would respond, because they didn't know what I was saying. So I'd say it again, much more slowly, and then I'd say it again, slower still, and then they would start, like little lights would start going off. Oh, me gustaría. Wait, that's the hypothetical tense, right? Yes, that's correct. It's conditional. That one. And so little by little, they would translate the sentence, and then they would start responding, also very slowly and haltingly. When I was teaching Spanish, all I wanted to do was translate the sentence into English and tell them how to respond. I did not want to wait for them, because it took them a long time. But I knew I had to. I would ask them in Spanish, and I would have to wait for them to translate. And I'd have to wait for them to think of an answer and to find a word and then to respond in Spanish to the question. Because I knew if I just gave them the answer that they wouldn't learn. I knew that they had to struggle with the sentence, listening to it, understanding it, and forming a new sentence in order to really learn the language. Jumping in and taking away the struggle from them and telling them the answer would not have helped them. Their battle, the waiting, was essential for growth. Waiting was essential for their growth. The Lord does the same thing in the scriptures today. And it sort of shocks us a little bit. We have a hard time reconciling it if we don't understand what's happening. We hear this sentence in the scripture. Jesus hears word that his very good friend Lazarus is sick. And then the scripture says something to us that is odd, it's strange, and it's hard to reconcile. The scripture says, now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus very much, so he stayed 2 more days in that place. What? That doesn't make sense. If he loved them very much, why did he drop everything and run to them? He loved them very much, and so therefore he made them wait 2 days longer than necessary. He loved them and therefore made them wait. The reason is because Jesus knew that in asking them to wait, that their faith would grow. He knew that the struggle of not having him answer their question right away would enlarge their hearts in order to receive something even greater from God. You know, Jesus does the same thing for us. We ask him, Lord, come to me. Help me. I need you. And then he doesn't seem to come. And he makes us wait. And we struggle, and we feel alone, even though God is right at our side. He's holding us in his arms. But God asks us to wait for an answer to our distress. He asks us to wait for an answer to our prayers. And the reason is because, keep in mind, my brothers and sisters, because God has something better planned. Because God loves us so much that he wants us to wait so that our hearts can be expanded, so that we can live truly a faith in him. So that we can live a faith in him. Because real faith is exercised when there is no evidence. It's when we don't see the light and we still believe that we really live our faith in Jesus Christ. And we know that faith is important to him because we see in this gospel passage the first conversation that he has with Martha. When Martha runs up to him, the first thing that Jesus is interested in finding out about is how much Martha's faith has grown in the waiting. Your brother will rise again. She says, yes, Lord, I know he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. And Jesus goes on to say, I am the resurrection. Do you believe that? You see, Jesus is getting at how much faith. Has her faith grown in that 4 days of darkness waiting for his arrival? And Martha responds to Jesus by saying, yes, Lord, I have come to believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God. Her faith has expanded. Her faith has grown. I have come to believe. And really, this is a beautiful exercise of faith because Martha has no evidence, right? The evidence in fact points in the opposite direction. You didn't come, so therefore you must not love me. His body is already rotting in the grave, so therefore you must not love me. And you allow him to die. All the evidence would point that Jesus is not the resurrection. But nevertheless, Martha says, I do believe. Even though all the evidence points in the opposite direction, I have come to believe that you are the Christ. And with that assent of faith in the darkness, with that assent of faith contrary to what evidence points out for her, Jesus is able to perform this amazing miracle of raising Lazarus from the dead. But we have to remember this faith that Jesus has grown in Martha is a faith that must act. Faith can't just be something internal. Our faith has to manifest itself by the way we live our lives. And we see that clearly as he calls out to Lazarus. It's sort of amusing if you think about what's happened here when Jesus, our Lord is weeping, but he calls out to Lazarus, Lazarus, come forth! Lazarus has to act in that moment. He's been raised to life, but he has to walk out of the grave. The amazing thing is, when he gets out of the grave, what does Jesus say? He says, untie him and let him go free. Lazarus had to walk out of the grave while he was still bound. He was still tied up. He was still in his burial shroud. And somehow he had to walk out of that tomb. You think that Jesus would say, go in there and tie him, and then I'll raise him from the dead. But the opposite. He was still bound by the constraints of death, by the reality of despair, by the reality of our human existence. And still he came out of the grave. That's how we have to be also. Our faith has to be in action. We take the step, even before it makes sense to take the step of trusting in God. While we're still bound, we say, Lord, I trust in you. Right? In the sacrament of confession, when we're still bound by our sin, we walk into the confession and we say, I've made this step so that I can have resurrection. Now let me be unbound by the sacramental powers of this confession, so that my sins may be forgiven and I may be freed. Faith in action, despite the fact that we are held bound in those moments when the Lord calls us to act. My brothers and sisters, we are called to exercise our faith before it is easy. We are called to exercise our faith most especially in moments that are difficult. Martha had to say, I believe you are the resurrection before she saw the resurrection happen. Lazarus had to come out of the tomb while he was still bound by his burial shrouds. They were called to believe and to act before it actually made sense. And that is a true exercise of faith. And it's like that for us. Having faith does not mean everything is easy. You come to church sometime, you see that person sitting in front of you, they look so pious and holy. It's like, they have so much faith. Look how easy it is for them. That's not faith. Faith Faith is when it's hard and you still say yes. I know sometimes people will come to me and they'll say, Father, I've lost my faith. I don't believe anymore. And I find these conversations very fruitful. I'll say to that person, well, why are you coming to me if you don't have faith? Why don't you come to the priest? You should go to your doctor or a psychologist. Why are you coming to me? I'm like, I don't know, you seem the right person to come to. I need to talk to a priest. Okay. Do you still pray every day? Oh yeah, Father, I'm praying more than ever. Do you still go to Mass on Sunday? Yes, I would never miss Mass. Do you still do your duties as a mother or a father? Yes, I'm doing everything I can, but it's so dark. To that person I would respond, you haven't lost your faith. You're exercising your faith in the darkness. It's when you don't have evidence and you are still bound that before the Lord you say, yes, and I will take that step, that true faith is exercised. It may seem like God is waiting in the distance, but He's not. He's right here with us, guiding us and leading us according to His loving providence. If Jesus asks you to live a faith in a moment of darkness, it is not because He doesn't love you. It is because He does love you. It is because He wants something even better for you. He's expanding your heart and giving you the opportunity to live a deeper faith that is real, that is operative without evidence, and acts while still bound to the constraints of this human existence.